welcome back to Northside Pyro. Today we're going to be doing some mortar rack fusing. We're going to do 3 different racks and show you some different ways to do it. First of all, most importantly is safety. You want to make sure that when you're shooting off mortars, you're either using the fiberglass tube that came with the pack, or you're using the HDPE tubes, size DR11 for canisters, and size DR9 for the small festival balls. Do not use PVC, do not use any other material. These are the only 2 that you should be using. The other thing is you're going to need a few tools. Fuse is useful, but we're going to show you in this first one a technique where you don't even need fuse. We're not going to use that. In the first one, we have the pink 10-second per foot fuse, and we have the quick fuse that we're going to use on the last rack that we put together. And then an incredibly important tool for safety are your no spark scissors. This is, I got this from Pyro Boom. Only one side is metal, the bottom is plastic. That way it absolutely cannot create a spark. And by not creating a spark, that means that you're doing things safely. You're gonna need some zip ties. Some people use tape. I use the zip ties. And then you are gonna need some tape in the end to put over the top, as we'll show you. For this first rack, we're gonna use these neon nishiki shells that we got from Dynamite Fireworks. And on this one, what we're going to do is we're actually not going to use any fuse. We're going to fuse them to each other. So the first thing, obviously, get the pack open and then get each one of the shells into a tube. This is obviously a 6-shot rack. We also have a 12 and a 24-shot rack that we'll be showing you in a few minutes here. Now, one very important tip is that you want them all of the fuses going in the same direction. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to fuse these fuses together. Instead of using a separate fuse, we're simply going to connect each one to itself. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll get back to you in a second. Okay, now that you're all fused up, what you want to do is, and this isn't totally necessary, but I like to clean things up and cut off the excess ends so that it's nice and clean. And also, if the fuses were a little bit longer and were sticking out, I would also cut off the ends of those, but it happens to be that these are very short. And then the last piece of the puzzle is you're going to take a piece of tape and just put it over the top of this whole thing. And that's it, you're done. You have the one end to light. If you wanted to, you could extend this a little bit, but I don't find that super necessary. And so you'll light this end, it'll carry down all the way. Again, 2 points of contact at each place that the fuses connect, and you are good to go. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, we're on to the 12-shot rack. This time we're still using the neon nishiki shells, and this time we're actually gonna use a fuse. This is the 10-second per foot fuse, so it's gonna go pretty quickly, but a nice little pace. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off at one end, leave ourselves a little bit of room to light off, and then we're gonna go ahead and take it, wrap it around, and bring it back on the other end. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off at the short end. That way I know that I'm going to leave myself as much fuse at the end as possible, and then depending on how long it is, I may actually add a little bit of cannon fuse So we'll get to that and show you in a moment. But first, let's start off by fusing this up. And again, don't forget, each side has to be going the same direction, and then you can turn around and have it going the other direction, but one rack side has to all be going the same direction. So we'll go ahead and hit fast forward and fuse it up, and we'll get back to you in a minute. So now you can see every single fuse has 2 points of contact. Now this one does have a bunch of extra fuse sticking out, so we are going to clip that. We're going to clip the extra plastic. And then I've decided I am going to add just a little bit of green cannon fuse to the end of this, just so we have a little bit more time to run away, because this will go pretty quickly. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're safe. So let's go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll get right back to you. Now, one of the reasons that, now I did see the fuse fall in, by the way, I'll get that out afterwards. One of the reasons that we clip all of the fuse is because that helps to stop with fuse jumping, meaning that if this little excess piece of fuse was sticking out, it could easily light off and jump into one of the other cans, and so we don't want that to happen because we want the paste to go the way that we want it to go. And now, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of the slower burning fuse to the end here. That way it doesn't just light off the second that we put the flame to it. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll put the tape on and we'll get right back to you. And that's it. This is good to go. Again, the reason that we put the tape on and the reason that we cut the fuse is because we want to avoid line jumping as much as possible. I'll probably put a little bit more tape on afterwards. I just didn't want to waste any more of your time. And the other thing is that you do put on 2 separate pieces of tape. You don't have one that goes around. That way, in case it lifts off, it doesn't pull as many up into the air. And so that's just another safety measure. Now we're going to go ahead and do the 3rd rack, and so we'll be right back with you. All right, so now we're on to our big boy rack. We got the 24-shot rack, and what we have here is we have 16 of these shells. These are Binge by Brothers Pyrotechnics, and these are the peanut shells. So each one has a double burst to it. And then the final 8 shots, because those only come with 16, the final 8 shots are going to be the death shells. We're going to quick fuse those. And so what we're actually going to do is we're going to go with the original first technique of the individuals going back and forth like that. And then this right here is the first death shell, and we're going to use the quick fuse to fuse all those up. And that's going to go ahead and make sure that all 8 of these basically go off at the same time to completely fill the sky with some very, very loud sky puke. Here we're actually going to use just a very small piece of the pink fuse to get from one side to the other. this is the first death shell here, and so this is where we're going to start the quick fuse all the way back around to the end of it, because we want these to go off as quickly as possible. We want basically all 8 to launch off at practically the same time. And so, as you know, this stuff lights off extremely quickly. And so we're going to start off by connecting it in here with the first 2, and then we will continue onwards. Now you'll notice on the quick fuse, I did 3 points of contact along the way. In fact, we have to do one more over here. The reason I do that is because it goes, and a lot of people don't, but I think it's a good idea because I've been burned, no pun intended, before. What happens is the quick fuse goes so quickly that sometimes the fuse of the mortar doesn't have a chance to catch. And so if you have 3 points of contact, and by the way, you want to pull these things about as tightly as you can. But when you have 3 points of contact, it just gives a much higher likelihood that it's actually going to catch and that the fuse is actually going to go off. So we'll go ahead and clean this thing up, and then we'll wrap her up for you. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and put some tape on this. And also, I did leave it a little bit short at the end because this is going to be a part of the finale. And the finale I'm actually going to have electronically hooked up with the Talon wires. And so I want it to go off pretty quickly after I press that button, so no need to extend it, and I'm not going to be next to it for safety purposes. That is going to do it this time for, oh, and by the way, just so you know, so in this one we actually had the 2 different techniques. We did the fuse to fuse. And then we had a little bit of the pink fuse between the 2, and then fuse to fuse again, and then we finished off using the quick fuse so that all 8 of these last death shells will all go up at the same time, but these will all go off pretty rapidly as well, the peanut shells, and those are double breaks. So altogether we have 14 of those, and so those will end up being 28 breaks, or 16 of those rather, sorry, and so that'll be 32 breaks plus the last 8, so we'll have a total of 40 breaks coming out of here, and it should be really, really nice for the end of the show. That's going to do it this time for Northside Pyro. By the way, thank you very much for getting us to 100 subscribers. We've only been up for 4 weeks, and we've already hit 100 subscribers, so thanks to each and every one of you. Leave us a comment, click the like button, subscribe, let us know if you have any questions. I'll try to get any questions that you have in the comments before the 4th of July, and we will see you, we will see you in the next one.